From the moment you were born to who you are today, what makes you the same person over all those years? Is there something within you that remains constant, or are you just a collection of ever changing parts? Today, we are diving into one of the most fascinating metaphysical puzzles, the problem of diachronic personal identity. In other words, what are the necessary and sufficient conditions for saying that a person at one time is the same as a person at another time? Imagine we have a person at T1, let's call them S1, and another person at T2, who is S2. What exactly makes S1 and S2 the same person over time? There are three main solutions to this puzzle that philosophers have proposed, and each comes with its own strengths and weaknesses. Let's break them down. The first theory we will examine is the soul theory. According to this view, you remain the same person over time if and only if you possess the same soul. The soul is conceived as an immaterial, indivisible entity that is entirely distinct from both the mind and the body. Think of the soul as a kind of spiritual essence, an unchanging core that persists through every stage of life. This theory has deep roots in many religious and spiritual traditions. This theory accounts for a strict numerical identity, as even though your mind and body are constantly changing, your soul, which is immaterial and unaffected by physical or mental changes, remains the same. This theory also offers support in the afterlife, because even if your body and mind are destroyed, your soul, which is your true self, lives on. However, the soul theory faces a significant challenge. If the soul is neither the body nor the mind, then what exactly is it? It seems to be an empty shell responsible for ensuring that we continue to exist over time, but without contributing to our thoughts, feelings, or memories. For something to be real, it needs to have properties or characteristics. But if the soul lacks any features, does it even exist? Philosophers argue that a featureless entity like this is indistinguishable from nothingness. Moreover, there is no empirical evidence for the existence of the soul. Despite centuries of religious and philosophical debate, we have no way of observing or measuring it. In a world increasingly dominated by scientific evidence, this lack of proof is a major strike against this theory. So while the soul theory provides a comforting answer to the question of what makes the same person over time, it struggles with the challenge of being both featureless and empirically unverifiable. Our second theory is the biological theory. This view states that the personal identity over time is grounded in biological continuity. In other words, you are the same person if there is an unbroken continuity of your biological organism. Let's illustrate this with an example. Imagine a person named Bob. At 8 weeks in the womb, Bob is just a developing embryo. No memories, no personality, just a biological structure. Then, fast forward to Bob at 15 years old. At this stage, Bob has developed a full-fledged body, a set of unique memories, hobbies, and personality traits that distinguish him from others. Finally, imagine Bob at age 60. At this stage, he has aged quite a bit, developed dementia, and undergone significant personality changes. According to the biological theory, Bob at all these times, despite all of these changes, is the same person because of the unbroken biological continuity that connects them. This theory aligns with our intuitions about growth, decay, and transformation. For instance, it helps explain why we see an elderly person with dementia as the same individual they were in their youth, even if their psychological traits have drastically changed. But there's a challenge to this theory too. Imagine a scenario where Bob's brain is transplanted into another person's body. If identity is purely biological, which body is the real Bob? The body left behind or the one with Bob's brain? The biological theory struggles to account for this, especially, as most of us would argue, if Bob goes where the brain goes. This would suggest that biological continuity alone might not be enough to explain personal identity. The third solution is psychological connectedness theory. This says that you're the same person over time if there's significant psychological connectedness, like memories, beliefs, and habits linking your different stages. According to this theory, as there's a chain of overlapping memories connecting you now to you in the past, you're the same person. Imagine you when you were 5 years old, playing in the park, and you in the present watching this video. Even if you don't remember that exact day at the park, there are overlapping chains of memories connecting your present self to your 5-year-old self through intermediate stages. This chain of connectedness forms the basis of your identity over time. This theory is attractive because it captures how we intuitively think about identity. We often define ourselves by our memories and the psychological traits that make us who we are. If someone woke up with all your memories, beliefs, and habits, wouldn't they be you? However, this theory faces a significant challenge known as the problem of reduplication. Imagine two people, let's call them Tim and Bob, both waking up to be George Washington. They each have all his memories, habits, and traits. According to the psychological connectedness theory, both Tim and Bob are George Washington. This leads to a paradox because two distinct people cannot be the same as one historical figure. This issue shows that psychological continuity alone may not be sufficient to ground personal identity. If none of these theories fully solve the problem, perhaps the answer is that there is no persistent self over time at all. This radical view is found in Buddhist philosophy, which argues that the self is an illusion. What we think of as self is just a collection of ever-changing physical and mental components. Think of a river. The water is constantly flowing, never the same from one moment to the next, yet we still call it the same river. Similarly, our sense of being, the same person, is just a result of continuity in our experiences and physical states, not because there's a core self that persists. However, this idea can be really hard to accept. After all, it goes against our basic intuition that there's something enduring about who we are. However, in philosophy, especially metaphysics, challenging our intuitions is part of the project. Just because something doesn't feel right doesn't mean it's not true. If that was the case, we would all still believe the earth is flat. Perhaps our sense of a persistent self is just a useful fiction, a story we tell ourselves to make sense of our experiences over time. So, what do we make of all of this? Are we the same person over time because of a soul, our biological continuity, our psychology, or is the self just an illusion? While none of these theories are without their challenges, they all push us to think deeply about what it means to be you.